So today we are starting with the paper Bioprocess Engineering. In that we are taking the first topic, Bioprocess Development. Let us start with some definitions. So what is the definition of bioprocess? Any process that uses complete living cells or their components to obtain desired products. What does this mean? This means that you can use any biological system like a microbial system, a plant system or an animal system, and you can also use their components to obtain the desired product. So mainly the components that we generally see that are being used are the enzymes. Sometimes we also see that these enzymes can be immobilized or the whole cells can be immobilized and the desired products can be obtained. So the baseline is using any biological system to get a desired product. So then how is the second definition, bioprocess engineering, different than a bioprocess? So strictly speaking about definition, bioprocess engineering means it is a subdiscipline within biotechnology which is responsible for translating the discoveries of life sciences into practical products. Say for example, we find a particular bacteria which is making a very important vitamin. So in the laboratory, we do this research. Now we want to scale up this research. We want to make the vitamin on a large scale. So when you want to do that, you will have to optimize the entire process. So bioprocess engineering is mainly about the optimization. It is related to seeing how you can increase the yield of your product using that particular biological system. So whatever research, basic research we have done in lab, how you can transform it into a practical product, a economically viable product which is important for the society on a whole. So that is a bioprocess engineering. Okay. Now let us see why bioprocess engineering is called as a interdisciplinary challenge. Interdisciplinary, this term itself means that many different disciplines or fields of science are involved here. So now what I am showing you is some of the fields which are involved or related to the bioprocess development. So as you can see, the first three, microbiology, zoology and botany, deal with the biological system. All three of these can be studied under one umbrella, that is biotechnology. So a biotechnologist will have the knowledge of all the three systems. So definitely people from this field are important for bioprocess development because the biological system needs to be thoroughly known or very well known. Then let's go to the next group: chemical engineering, mathematics, industrial design and the different streams of engineering. So what are people from this field going to give in a bioprocess development? So definitely they may not know the biological system much, but they are very important when the process is to be scaled up. So designing of a fermenter may be an essential role of the industrial design person or the mechanical engineering person. Or you may need to study the mass balances of a particular bioprocess, or you need to go for a mathematical modeling. So in that case, you will require the expertise of people from these fields. So as you can see, we can divide these fields into two broad categories: biology field and non-biology field. But both of them are very important. So one should know the biology, how the desired product is obtained, and the other will design the entire process for that to obtain a desirable product in the maximum quantity. So now Let us see some of the tasks. So what we saw up were the different fields, and now we are going to see the different tasks. So whenever you are doing a bioprocess development, you require the expertise of biology people as well as non-biology people, and sometimes you require an integrated effort. Let us take few of these tasks or examples. So if you think about bioreactor designing, it is mainly the field of an industrial design person or mechanical engineer to design the bioreactor. But the requirements can be told by a biological person, definitely. If you go for mode of operation, then now this is the task of the biology person. So whether the person wants to run the process in a batch mode, a continuous mode or a fed batch mode is completely decided by a biology person or a biotechnologist, taking into consideration all the three fields. If you think about the third task, monitoring of process parameters, then here it is an integrated effort. On one hand, the biotechnologist will tell what are the process parameters that need to be monitored, but on the other hand, the related things like designing of the probe, selection of the probe, making the ports of the probe, and keeping the calibration of the probes, all these things will be done by the engineers. So some of the tasks are related to biology, some of the tasks are non-biology, and some are integrated tasks. Hence, I think we can definitely say that bioprocess development is a interdisciplinary challenge. And why it is called as a challenge? Because as you can broadly see and appreciate here that people from two broad fields have to work together. So, a non-biology person should know some biology and a biology person should know some engineering. Otherwise, they will not be able to relate to each other. Okay, so even when tomorrow you go out in the field, you go out for your jobs in industries, you will have to deal with different people and different people with different fields of expertise whenever you are working in bioprocess development. So I hope now it is very clear why bioprocess development is called as a interdisciplinary challenge. Okay, now let us move to some practical aspects. As biotechnologists, we must be aware about the different biotech companies which are there in India. So since this is the introductory lecture, it is important for us to also be practically aware about our field. So I have listed some companies for you here. I hope you have heard about them or read about them. So Biocon India is the first biotech company settled or made in India, and I'm sure you know it is run by Kiran Mazumdar, Shaw, a woman entrepreneur. Bharat Biotech definitely was recently in news related to the COVID vaccine that it is developing. You must have heard about Shanti Biotech in relation to the recombinant hepatitis vaccine that it made. Then there are many other names like Serum India from Pune, Reliance Life Sciences which is in Mumbai, Zydus Cadila, Pyramid which is in Ahmedabad and Pune again. Okay, so now I have listed out some biotech companies in India. These are big giants in India. Now I want you to do a small assignment. Can you list biotech industries in Nasik or whichever area you are studying in or you are residing in? So you will know what is the scope of this subject for you in future. Okay, so I want you to do this assignment. Let's move ahead in the topic. Okay, now we are going to see the overview of bioprocess. Bioprocess is one term, but it has many or multiple steps in it. Starting from some steps which are called as upstream processing, and then there are some steps which are called as downstream processing. So let us take a look at all of them. Yes. So bioprocess is a stepwise process. Okay, so the first thing in bioprocess is media formulation. So media is very important because if you give a good media, then only your biological system will work and it will give you the desired product. So media formulation is a very basic and important part of a bioprocess. Thereafter, sterilization of media, fermenter and ancillary equipment. Sterilization is another important aspect. We are going to study it ahead. Third is production of pure culture. So whatever biological system you are working with, it should be in a pure culture. No other organism should be there. Then you should grow your pure culture under optimum conditions. So the best pH, the best temperature, aeration conditions, agitation conditions, and when you give the best optimum conditions, you are going to get the maximum productivity. After the production, you will go for product extraction and purification. So you will harvest the media and you will use different techniques to extract your product and then purify it to a particular degree. Now when you are doing all these things, every step you are generating a effluent, and therefore this effluent is very important. Even if effluent disposal is the last part, it is very important, and the particular industry must take note to treat the effluent and then only it can safely dispose it in the any water body. So this is an overview of bioprocess, but we are going to study each of this part in details in the coming lectures. Okay, so I hope students you have refreshed your memory with this flow sheet of bioprocess, because in your third year also you have had this paper. So now let's move ahead. Now we are going to see two very important concepts in bioprocess. One is contamination, or rather related to aseptic operations, and the second is containment. So first let us see aseptic operations. What are aseptic operations? So any operations which avoid entry of microbes from the environment. So in very simple terms, we call this as contamination. So many of us have experienced that we have tried to grow E. coli, and when in our media we inoculated the E. coli and on the next day you do a gram stain, you get gram positive rods. So as students of biotechnology, we know that there is a contamination, means some non-desirous organism has come in our media. So it has spoiled our experiment. Similarly, on a large scale, whenever you are going to aim at getting a desired product, it is important that no other bacteria or microbe grows in your medium. So there are a set of operations which avoid the entry of other microbes from the environment into your fermenter vessel. Okay. The most fundamental of this is using a pure culture. So in any large scale manufacturing processes, the first step, even in the flow sheet we have mentioned, is making a pure culture of the bacteria or any microbe of your interest. Now before operation, to avoid contamination, some aseptic operations are done. For example, media sterilization. So whatever media you are using, it has to be sterilized so that it will not contribute to any microbes. Then you will have to sterilize the fermenter vessel and ancillary parts. So what are ancillary parts? These are the parts attached to the main fermenter vessel which are very important, okay, and active during the entire fermentation. And third is sterilization of additives. See, students, during fermentation, many a times we need to add certain things in the fermenter vessel. For example, if you want to adjust pH, you will have to add an acid solution or alkali solution. If there is foam generated in your fermenter, you will have to add an anti-foam agent. So when you are adding all these things during an ongoing fermentation, they need to be sterilized beforehand. Otherwise, they are going to contribute to contamination. So this is all before the operation, but during the operation also we have to maintain the aseptic conditions. So whatever we can sterilize, we do sterilize before the fermentation. But as the fermentation proceeds, now we have to take care that from no part of the fermenter contamination will enter inside or any other external microbes will enter inside. So can we think of such operations? Yes. See, during aerobic fermentation, you are constantly providing air in the fermenter. So you are providing air inside the fermenter through a air pipe or a sparger. So definitely you will have to fit filters there so that the air that is going inside the fermenter is sterile. So this is also a aseptic operation. Another example that we can take is when you are running a fermentation, definitely you will go for sampling because you want to see the course of the fermentation. So after periodic intervals, you are removing the samples from the fermenter. So this sample port is a very likely contaminant area. It will allow microbes from environment to go inside. So you have to take care that the sample port is sterilized before taking the sample as well as after removing of the sample. So such operations help in maintaining the aseptic conditions before and during the operations. Okay. So I hope the concept of aseptic operations is clear to you. Now let us go to the second concept which is very important, and that is containment. Now in aseptic operation, we said that no external microbe should enter inside. Containment means exactly opposite, to contain. It means that your biological system should not escape outside. So what is containment? A combination of operations, many operations designed to avoid accidental release or escape of organisms during or post operations. Means you have to take multiple steps to see that even by mistake your biological system is not exposed to the environment. Now mainly containment was brought to the forefront when people started using genetically engineered microbes. Because genetically engineered microbes are totally different, they are not wild type and they may change in the environment and we don't know what will happen if they are released. So containment became a major issue in that context. So there are broadly two methods for containment. One is a physical method. In physical method, you mainly focus on the infrastructure or standard operating procedures, and then you have a biological method where you are directly working with the biological system. Okay, but before we go to physical and biological methods of containment, let us first understand that how containment is decided and how much containment we must do for a particular bioprocess. Okay, so let us move to the next slide. Okay, now in this slide you can see the flow chart. Now this flow chart begins with a process organism. So essentially your containment or level of containment is dependent upon your process organism, what organism you are using. And what is the basic criteria that you have to think of? Whether your organism is a genetically engineered one or a non-genetically engineered one. Okay. So now if your organism is non-genetically engineered, you have to see what is the hazard group allocation. Means students, when we are using any biological system, we are talking about bacteria. So sometimes the bacteria may be pathogenic and most of the times it is non-pathogenic. For some reasons we need to use pathogenic microbes with reduced virulence. Okay. So now how much hazardous it is? So it is put in different groups 1 to 4, starting from non-pathogenic on the 1 and highly pathogenic on the 4. So we need to know some points about your process organism. First is whether it is pathogenic or non-pathogenic. If it is pathogenic, how virulent it is. Okay, what type of disease it is causing in the general population. What is the infectious dose of this organism, and whether the disease caused by the organism is very common in our society or community is very prevalent or it is not very common, because all these questions are very important in grouping the microbes into the hazard group allocations. Okay, so now let us see, after grouping the microbes, how you are going to understand how much containment you have to do. So I hope it is obvious till now that group 1 you don't have to be very stringent, and group 4 you have to be very strict. Okay, so these are the containment levels. So if your organism belongs to group 1, the containment level is GILSP, means good industrial lab scale practice. Okay, now in this containment level, it's the least stringent level. You actually don't do anything for containment. You just take the regular care that nothing spills out. Apart from that, you are not doing any containment here. But when your organism belongs to hazard allocation group 2, 3 or 4, you go for the containment level 1, 2 and 3. So as you start with the containment level, 1 is a strict one, second level is stricter and third is the strictest level. So containment levels define how the lab's infrastructure should be there, how many personnel can enter the lab, what is the qualification of that personnel, who can access the lab at what time, and these are related to the personnel. Then there are other aspects like safety cabinets which are used, biological safety cabinets, the common laminar airflow cabinets that you know. Okay, in the lab the containment level is not stringent, so we use our regular laminar airflows. But in industries they are called as the biological safety cabinets, and there are various designs, and based on the containment level you have to have that safety level design in your laboratory, otherwise you cannot work. Okay, so is that clear? So if your process organism is non-genetically engineered, then you can allocate it to a hazard group, and then you have to follow this containment level. Okay, now let's see if it is a genetically engineered organism, then you have to categorize it as harmless group 1, where the organism is not directly harmful, or potentially harmful group 2. In that you have to see whether you are working on small scale or large scale. Now small scale essentially talks about a lab scale, means you are working below 10 liters. If you are working below 10 liters, then you do not have to really bother about the containment, because it's a very small scale, you are working in the laboratory. So you have to take the bare minimum, whatever regular care you take, SOPs you do, you have to go for that. But apart from that, there is no stringent rule. If you are working with a harmless group 1 organism and you are going on a large scale operation, then you have to go for a B1 containment level, which is equivalent to GILSP of this. Okay, so B1 containment level again means GILSP, and we have already seen what is GILSP. GILSP means there are no very stringent procedures followed here, but we have to take care that no spillage is occurring. Okay, but if you are working with a potentially harmful group 2 organism on a large scale, then you have to follow B2, B3 and B4 level of containment. So here B2 is equivalent to 1, B3 is equivalent to 2 and B4 is equivalent to 3. So these containment levels 1, 2, 3 and B2, B3, B4 are same. Only they are numbered differently to show the difference between the genetically engineered or non-genetically engineered. Okay, so what we have understood from here, that containment is very important, and the containment level, the degree of containment of any bioprocess is decided by the most important factor, and that is the process organism that you are going to work with. Okay, so I hope students you are very clear, this chart is very clear to you, and after the lecture you should once again go through this chart. So now let us go to the methods of containment. So as we discussed, first method is physically you can help to contain the microbes. How? So you can have a special laboratory design. So some laboratories are designed as one-way entry exit. Means you have a entry point and then you cannot turn back. You have to go straight, 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 and then there is a exit point. So what is the advantage? The advantage is airflow takes place in one direction only and the chances of contamination as well as containment are low. Then there are some containment equipments like we have just discussed. Biosafety cabinets are there, many others are there, air filters are there. So many containment equipments are available in the market and you have to install them as per your containment level. And then there are some special operational procedures. So especially personnel who are working with or on the bioprocess, they have to take care that while handling the biological system, they are not accidentally causing a spillage or they are not accidentally touching somewhere outside. So they have to follow the strict SOPs. So that is physical type of containment. Then we go to the next one, that is biological. Now in biological, how it is different? We're directly targeting the biological system. So here your system is genetically engineered. So you can directly work on the vector. You see to it that the vector is non-self transmissible. Means the vector you have inserted in your bacteria, it will work when it is inside the bacteria, but if it is accidentally released outside, on its own it cannot transmit itself. So there is no problem or any danger. Second is host. So if you are using a genetically engineered host, if you use an auxotrophic organism and if it accidentally goes outside or is exposed to nature, it will not grow there because it's a auxotroph and there is a lot of competition in the environment. Or you can have a recombinant deficient one, or you can have an organism which cannot transfer genes on its own, or an organism which is resistance negative, means it is very susceptible to the antibiotics. So such organisms, when we select, they will give us a desired product in the fermenter, but when released outside, they will not survive. Okay, or you can use a suitable host vector system. And now in the end, we are seeing some of these products I have listed for which are made by the microbes. We are going to study each and every product later on in detail. Okay. And now in summary, today we studied about how bioprocesses are interdisciplinary. They are essential parts of pharma, food and chemical industry. They can use three biological systems. They require monitoring and definitely they require skilled personnel. Okay, so in the next lecture, we will start with details on bioprocess development. So this is all for this lecture.